I first heard about Bitcoin actually in 2012 and I met some really weird guy who was like telling me about Silk Road, telling me you can like order assassinations on people from there.
I think RektGuy might be one of like 5 products actually in crypto that use the word flywheel correctly.
Where I think 99% of NFT products messed up was they used that IP they'd built to just sell more NFTs.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I didn't know what I was going to do with my life.
In crypto, we're very used to getting rewarded with a token airdrop for doing on-chain activity. That's like, hey, come into my L2, bridge capital, do a bunch of trades, and in return, we'll give you a token airdrop. I was like, okay, what if we did it with drinks, right? What if there was a Rekt coin airdrop per drink and people actually made money on it? Then people are just going to buy the drinks just to make the money. Like, who wouldn't do that? Every single person always asks, how do I buy the equity? How do I get involved in the equity? That's what all these traditional finance guys want to own. And my response is, if you want to get exposure to the equity, you can, but...
Well, GM everybody, and got a special guest here today, OSF. OSF, how's it going? Do you go OSF now in the space, or is it more Ovi?
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess I'm not anonymous, so people know my real name, so I just say Ovi, but not everyone knows my real name. So when you're at events and stuff, I say, hey, I'm Ovi, and people are like, oh, okay. And then so later on, it's like, oh, that's OSF. I'm like, oh, okay. So, but yeah, Ovi's cool.
Yeah,
Ovi's cool.
Have you seen everyone's changing their name on X at the minute?
Yeah, I have. So someone has the OSF handle, unfortunately, and I asked them about 3 years ago how much they wanted for it, and they said 100 ETH, which obviously now is like 500K.
Yeah.
And they obviously know how to play the game because they've sort of kept it a bit active.
Right.
So Twitter haven't suspended it, whatever. So I don't know, maybe one day I'll get it, but I'm obviously not going to spend $500,000 on a Twitter handle. So.
Would you ever just go back to Ovi on the main?
I can't really, can I? I can't.
Do you ever get to a place where you feel a little bit like Banksy for the art side, and you know that's your Banksy name, and then you've got like a company that you run? Like, how does that all work?
That's a good question. I never thought of it like that. Yeah, maybe. I do think it's a good point. Actually, I do think people probably relate OSF a bit more to the art side of things, and Ovi a bit more to like the Rekt Drinks side of things. So maybe, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, because you do have that, don't you? You have like creators, they'll have like their personal or business, and then they'll have like their brand associated content. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Okay, well, look, let's get into the intro here. I think for people meeting you for the first time today, because we spoke a little bit offline, but the idea really is to get as top of funnel, as broad an audience as possible for this, while still giving the fans what they want. And I guess before we go into that side, for people who literally are just meeting you for the first time today, who is OSF? Who is Ovi?
I hate that question. It's like when someone asks you, who are you supposed to say where you're from? Are you supposed to say what you've done in your life? Are you supposed to say...
I've given you no hints. I want to see what just comes out your mind.
What my spiritual direction is. I don't really know. I guess the best way to put it is I used to work in banking. I was a trader for about 10 years. Yeah. Just somehow fell into crypto about 3 or 4 years ago. Made some art for fun, which kind of randomly went viral, and grew a presence out of that. Created an art collection called RektGuy, which is the main thing that went that did super well, and we got a very strong community around, and the Rekt IP or brand took off quite a lot, and I felt like there was an opportunity in making that something a bit bigger beyond just an online community. So decided to make drinks. Now we have Rekt Brands Inc., which is the umbrella company where everything, all the art stuff, the drinks, etc., is housed into. So that's the story, and that's all the stuff that I don't want to say I created it, because we've obviously had a great team supporting me around it and an amazing community that's made it all possible. Also, it's also something I never really intended to create. It's just kind of things have happened, not by accident, but organically. Yeah, it's just like I never really thought I'd make drinks, right? But we just randomly decided to do it, thought it would be a good idea, and it did well. Like, it's not like...
This is really good, by the way.
Do you like it?
Genuinely really like that.
I don't drink much water, and I love sweet, sugary drinks, but obviously they're bad for you. So I felt like I made a drink for myself, but most of the healthy drinks that are not sugary and are not bad for you, they don't look that cool. The branding of it is very either too feminine if you're not female, or not very energetic. So my idea was like, okay, let's just make a drink that I think looks cool but is actually good for you. But anyway, I'm diverging from the original question.
No, we'll do that. Like this will be just a chill interview. Like you always get better content from it, I think, when it just goes organic a little bit, like the brand itself. Look, I guess you've been in the space for a while now. I've been following you since I entered the space properly, which was 2021 for me. How long have you been in the crypto space for?
Yeah, so I mean, I first heard about Bitcoin actually in 2012 when I was backpacking in Thailand, and I met some really weird guy who was like telling me about Silk Road, telling me you can order assassinations on people from there, and you pay in this thing called Bitcoin. Anyway, didn't think anything of it. Discovered it again in 2017 right when there was that period of time when everyone was talking about Bitcoin again. I tried to buy some. I couldn't get a Coinbase account, KYC'd and stuff, so I didn't touch it. And then I actually from then became quite crypto skeptic after that, because I'd spent some time looking at it and I was like, this doesn't really make any sense. When you work in finance, you're taught to think about things from a very model driven perspective, where it's like, oh, here are the numbers, here are the inputs, this is the equation, and this is therefore the value of it. And obviously you can't really apply that to Bitcoin. So I didn't like it for a while, and it wasn't really until 2021 when I actually finally got my head around it. First bought Bitcoin, obviously started looking at it during COVID, like many people as well. So by crypto standards, I'm actually relatively late into the game, I'd say.
We must have been like fairly similar time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
I was really like close to the end of 2021. Had a friend who basically made like 150,000 off a dog coin on Algorand. That was my selling point into the space. Was like, okay, so I've never even heard of this thing, and he's making 150k not off the thing, but off a dog coin connected to the thing. It was like, okay, if he can do that, why can't I? Akita coin, I think it was.
It feels like that's how everyone gets in, right? It's always like
profit driven.
There's one of your mates has somehow made life-changing money on it, and then you just get involved, and then it goes one of two ways: either you come in and lose all your money and you just leave. Okay, three ways: or leave, or you come in and make a ton of money, or you come and lose a ton of money, but you actually understand it and like it and stick around.
Yeah, that's definitely I'm number 3 on that one. Obviously, you had a really crazy start once you dived in properly.
Got lucky. Definitely got very lucky.
Tell me a little bit about that, and then I'd like to step back and talk a bit more about your finance side. But before we do that, Bored Apes.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I'll tell you the story, and it's
wild.
It's wild, and there's a lot of luck involved, a lot of luck. Sure. So basically, I'd already been trying to trade NFTs for about 3 or 4 weeks, I guess, at this point. Like, I just gotten into it, and I was living in New York at the time. I just quit my job to move back to the UK for a new job. So I had like 3 months off, gardening leave, it's all paid. When I was going to my new job, you get a big signing on bonus and stuff. So like I was in like a relatively good spot, and I'd just been out for, classic leaving drinks with all my mates and stuff. Came home like really drunk. I'd had a lot to drink. It was like 2 a.m. and I was just like browsing through my phone. I just saw this like Bored Ape stuff. Went to the website, and the one thing I would say is when I went to the website, I was like, wow, this actually looks really professional. It's all been really well done. And to this point for NFTs, there was no talk. I mean, people were like, yeah, this could act as a membership, or buying a CryptoPunk means you're part of the cool club. But there was no like project that actually stated it would be some sort of membership thing. And so this was like, this is the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and we're going to have a membership club in Miami and all this kind of stuff. And it's all going to be governed by this NFT. And I was like, oh, it's the first time something's come out that looks like it's really professionally done, but they're actually specifically stating this is what it is. And the thing about like members clubs and that kind of stuff, and I have mates who are like, oh, I'm part of Soho House and this is really cool, and if you're in finance, you can't be a part of that and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, I actually kind of get this, and I don't know if I want to be a part of this, but I can see other people want to be a part of it. But also, I was like really hammered at the time as well. So I think I had about $40,000 in my wallet, and I just put all of it into minting this thing. But it was one of those things where the mint was around for 2 days. No one had really touched it.
Yeah.
And it started to pick up momentum. And I could see, like, I minted some to begin with. And I could see it was like started to mint out really quickly, because you would see it would go down from like 6,000 to 5,000. Right. So I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, it's a good bet to take, because even if, I could put all my money into it and it will probably mint out in the next 10 minutes, and I'll probably be able to sell them for at least, 2 or 3 times the money. Like, it was almost like I felt like it was a really guaranteed trade. So I did that, put everything into it. And then I just passed out basically, because I was like so drunk and sleepy. And then like I woke up the next day and I was like, fuck, this stuff's up a lot basically. Yeah. And then, I started like selling some of it and monetizing it. But it was just, if I wasn't, it was just so many things that had to happen, right? If I hadn't quit my job, I wouldn't have gone out for drinks. I wouldn't have been up at that time on like a Monday night. If I hadn't been drunk, I wouldn't have made that stupid decision to put all my money into it. Like I would have just not done that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy story.
How many did you end up with?
I had 150.
150. And these things at the top?
Yeah, at the top they were like, I guess like worth 500k each, but we'd sold half of them, so I was down to about 70-ish. It's still obviously a lot of money, but
it's funny, the mentality, because that's exactly what happens. Like I've had a couple of fortunate moments in the space, and it's never about the peak or how crazy it is of like still owning 75. It's always about, I've already sold X amount. This space will kill you with, I could have made this much money, but I only made this. So obviously these things weren't like purely liquid at the time either. So although at the top 500,000, they were actually kind of liquid at the 500k mark.
Yeah, weirdly they were.
I think that was like obviously the peak of the industry in the space. Trying to like bring this back for an audience who are, especially for someone brand new to this, they're probably thinking, what on earth are these guys talking about right now?
Yeah.
500k for essentially a JPEG of a monkey, where what that represented was access to a club that wasn't even built yet.
Yeah, it didn't even exist.
But it would exist in Miami, and it was fairly clear that was going to be the case because of the value of these assets. You had Bieber owning one, you had Paris Hilton, I think, owned one. So now this club is not only exclusive, but it's like the highest end of an exclusive club that you could possibly imagine, with the biggest names in the world starting to get access here. Tell me about that journey of like, okay, I own a ton of these. Now Snoop Dogg and Justin Bieber and everyone's buying in. They're getting to this crazy amount of money. Was your mentality still the finance mentality of like, this is, were you like skeptic? Was the skepticism wrapped around it? Or did you really get caught up into the hype of like that moment?
I really did get caught up in the height of it. And, by this point, myself and my friend Mando, who I used to work with as well, basically had joined everything we had together. So we were kind of operating it as a partnership, if that makes sense. And we really did get caught up in the hype, especially during this moment. Eminem buying one, and we were just like, whoa, this thing is like going crazy. And at that point, it really did feel like this was something that, I don't want to say changed the world, that sounds so corny, but it did feel like it was something that was really taking off. And because it was new, it was crypto related, this idea of being able to own something digitally, which people couldn't get their heads around, and now we're finally coming to terms with. And it was cool, like the idea of this, Bored Ape thing was like a really cool brand that I think people liked and resonated with aesthetically as well. So genuinely really did get caught up in the hype of all of it, to be honest with you. And at that moment in time, which was probably like this time 4 years ago now, I think, I still think it had the potential to be as well. And I love those guys, and I'm always going to be grateful because they made us life-changing money, and they made something like really cool. But I think they went in so many different directions, it kind of didn't end up what I thought it was going to be, if that makes sense. But yeah, still, you know, at that time I was in the hype as much as everyone else, and yeah, we could have sold way earlier. Definitely sold way earlier and made a lot more, but it's always, you know, always easier said than done. When you're in the moment, it's hard to, what do? You're in this moment, this thing's going up every single day. Like,
exactly.
How do you make yourself, and for not no reason, right? For, you know, it's like one day Snoop Dogg buys one, the next day like Eminem buys one, then it's on the Jimmy Fallon show. Like this is going crazy, right? How could you possibly think to sell something at that point? But that's obviously what you're supposed to do.
Well, look, that obviously paints the picture of you entering this space. I think it does a really good job of that as well. I guess, you know, we talked a little bit about your background in finance. Pretty stable. Honestly, like, I think especially the time you were in finance, sort of the go-to career in the UK. Like, what one of, you know, like in terms of what people would go to university to study for, in terms of aspiration from a financial perspective, in terms of aspirations for a stable, you know, if I work really hard here, there is a potential that I'm going to be set for life in this industry and I'm going to stay here. I think, at least from my perspective, obviously UK as well, I definitely looked at investment banking. I definitely looked at that area as somewhere that I could definitely see myself in, especially because of the financial opportunities. Tell me a little bit about the experience, but tell me also about, like, was seeing Bored Apes and that move, was that just the moment where you were like, that world, I'm going to have to leave it? Like, it just couldn't possibly make sense. I have millions and millions of dollars worth of assets in this new world. I never quite got there in the previous world, and it would take me still decades potentially to ever get to that type of money. Tell me about that journey.
Yeah, so I went into trading for two reasons. Number one, because I wanted to make money. Like, it's always a perception in your head that, like, okay, if you go to work in an investment bank, you make a lot of money. And when you're, you know, when I was like 16 or 17 or whatever, deciding when to go to uni, like, in my head, you think that's cool. It's like, oh yeah, I want to like earn loads of money and get a Ferrari and, you know, all that sort of stuff that is like idolized by young boys, I guess. Like, I was just quite quintessential that, really. And like, I didn't grow up in a wealthy family or anything like that. My mum didn't go to university, for example, so I didn't have any of those things growing up. So I was always like, okay, I want to do this because I want to have like all this cool shit. And, you know, that's kind of, sadly and tragically, that's what you aspire to when you're not from that, when you're growing up. So I ended up, I studied maths and economics at university. Like, I went to a university where people go into banking. I went to London School of Economics in London, and then I worked really hard. I just studied and worked really hard to get the job that I wanted. I ended up interning at Barclays Capital and then joined as a trader there in 2012, which is what I wanted to do. And it was great. Like, I learned so much from doing it. The other thing that I really like doing that I've always done when I was younger is, like, I just like this idea of like taking risk, or that's a more eloquent way of saying gambling. I think there's a fine line between the two of them, but I've always liked doing that. Like, I always traded stuff when I was 17, 18, lost a load of money. Like, the first penny stock I ever bought was a UK company called Provexis when I was 17. And it was up. It was like basically the shit coin of stocks. It was up like 2,500%.
Right.
Because there were rumors that Coca-Cola were going to buy it. And it was all these, there's like an internet forum where you go onto and people would just spread all this misinformation. So I bought into these rumors and obviously literally bought the top of this thing and averaged down. I ended up losing like 5K on it, which was a lot of, that's basically all I had saved from working part-time then. And I never sold it. I actually still own it. And this is now almost 20 years later. I still own this thing, and it's in my Halifax like share dealing account. So, but I learned that mistake very early on. I learned sort of like buying the top, learning about bad actors, spreading misinformation, learning about like having that big pullback, losing everything.
FOMO.
Yeah, FOMO, all of that. Like I learned that when I was 17, losing all the money that I'd saved from working part-time at Curry's, basically. So, but anyway, so went trading, and then I liked that. That didn't put me off, if that makes sense. I was like, cool, like that was bad, but I want to make it back. I'm like really keen to learn how to do this really well. So went into Barclays, and yeah, it was great. Like I learned so much there. I feel like I did well there as a trader, and I also got the opportunity to work in New York for 3 years as well. So I moved to New York with Barclays, and it was awesome. But it got to a point where when you start as a 21-year-old, you're like, okay, I'm really keen to learn things from everyone, and I'll do what everyone tells me to do, and I'll listen to my boss. And as you get on, if you start doing well, you start to think, oh, I know better than these guys, or I hate being told what to do, or I want to take more risk, but these guys are not allowing me to take risk, or I don't want to spend my time. You do trade with clients, right? So sometimes you have to like lose money for clients. It's a bit of a weird thing, but you do it for the relationship kind of thing. And I was like, oh, why am I doing that when this is the trader I want to have, but I'm getting put into these bad trades by clients? So I started to have these feelings, I think, towards the end of it. And, one of the reasons why I started trading crypto, because I was like, look, I just want to be able to trade my own money and not be told what to do, or not get stopped out if I still believe in something. And it got to a point where my P&L swings in crypto were higher than my P&L swings with like the bank's capital, so like my own money versus the bank's capital. And obviously it's a lot more risky, because if I lose all my own money, I'm in a bad spot. If I lose the bank's money, I still get paid a salary, I still have a job. It's not really my own personal risk. But it was a big leap to take, but I just felt like it was way more interesting. This stuff was moving up like 100 times and down 99%. The volatility was crazy, but that really excited me. And it was a big risk, but I just felt like I had to back myself a bit and be like, okay, this is a bigger opportunity for me. If it all goes wrong, what's the worst case scenario? I'll just go back into banking. And it doesn't sound that bad, but it is actually, I'd hate to have to do that, because there's this like stigma of everyone who still works in banks, but anyone who leaves, they really want them to fail, because you get paid well in banking, right? But you can't really leave because you get paid in stock. It's all deferred over a period of 3 years. And as you get older, people end up like having families, living in really expensive houses with expensive mortgages. So you have all these running costs where if you leave, you can't just, fund this expensive lifestyle. So I think people get trapped in it. And luckily I left like right before I got married or had any children. So I wasn't in the trappable zone. But people do get trapped, and they're trapped for life. And then I think they hate it when someone leaves and does something else and does really well out of it. So if I was unsuccessful and had to go back, I think it actually would be really bad. It would be shameful that, sure, I wouldn't like be on the road, but just from a mental standpoint, I'd be like, I'm kind of like, I've come crawling back because this risk I took didn't work out. So
I think we all have that. Like any person in a startup, anyone who's willing to do it on their own.
Exactly.
Traditional.
No one wants them to do well. It's just human nature, I think. So
and the fear as well. The fear of going back. I think it takes a certain sort of mentality and mindset. And I do wonder about those people who were trapped. Like, did they ever have that mentality? Like, really?
Yeah.
Because it's a challenge, and we'll get into the challenges, I'm sure, but it's like everything you're saying is resonating so hard with me. Obviously, I went a very different route than you. I didn't start a business. Well, I did, but it was content, which is, as volatile as any industry. Exactly, in the most volatile industry that I could think of doing content in. And I left a startup. They're now $1 billion company. I've got friends who are doing very well from it. And they can see it all. They can see exactly what I do. They don't understand any of it, but they can see it. I am terrified about that. Like going back with my pockets turned out.
That's the thing. It's a bit humiliating, really, isn't it? And it shouldn't be, because it's like, oh, I took a risk, which was a big risk, and it didn't work out, because the odds are generally it won't work out. So it shouldn't be humiliating, but it is. But maybe if you feel that it is, that's a good characteristic to have, because it means you will do everything to not fail.
I'm learning this more and more. It's like there's such a grey area in all of these perceptions about what's good and bad, like in mentality, in outcome, like all of these things. Like it really isn't as black and white as these things are good and bad. They like drive people Some people are like workaholics, but then are they workaholics if they're getting passion out of it and they love it, as opposed to somebody who isn't a workaholic but sits and watches Netflix for 7 hours a day? Like, you know, there just isn't really any black and white in life that I found. And I think the crypto space does a very good job of reflecting that. You know, it's all scams. You have to get over that hurdle to begin with. You will lose money at some point. You have to get over that hurdle as well. And then there's all of these opportunities, but there's just as many opportunities to fail, if not 100%, like 99% more opportunities to fail. Tell me about the family and the friends and the social side to all of this then, when you did make that decision, because you made it, but they were all seeing it. And how did that go? Like, how close are you to your family? Like, did they like have a say in it? Did you have a conversation with them beforehand, or tell me about that?
Yeah, so I'm very close with my dad, and I think through my entire life, he's sort of been the person who's been advising me on stuff. Like, study this, go to this university, like this is apply to these banks, or I'd always get, you know, I'd get him to help me with interview preparation or stuff that I should know. Should I go into this path or this path? So and he's obviously wanted me to do well. So so I've always been quite close with him. You know, should I take this opportunity to New York, all that kind of stuff. So then, like, basically one day I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I'm leaving and going to do this full time. He was just like, number one, he's like, what? And he just couldn't get his head around it because, you know, for people of that generation, all you really hear about crypto is it's a scam, people are money laundering, it's done by criminals, all this kind of stuff. And his view is like, oh, I've just spent like basically my entire life to get a really good job that I'm now in, and I've done well at it. And I was a sort of got to like the director level. I'd just been made a director basically, and I was just leaving just to go and do this crypto stuff. He just could not get his head around it, and he was a bit I think he was just a bit like upset with me for it. But you know, now over time I think he's managed to understand it. You know, like it's changed. Like it's crazy how much the perception of crypto has changed from now since 2021. Like most people thought it was still a scam. Now you have the president of the USA, you know, doing a complete U-turn on it and actually buying Bitcoin. Like it's a massive change. So he understands it now, and obviously it's been a good decision in hindsight. But yeah, at the time he was like, this is kind of crazy. And even people I worked with as well, like a lot of my friends were just like, this is kind of crazy. Like, why would you? Yeah, sure. Like maybe you've made a lot of money now, but it's never going to stay like that. It's always going to go back down. And they weren't wrong at the beginning. You know, at the beginning, everything, right when I quit, end of 2021, everything just crashed right in 2022. And I was kind of looking a bit stupid. You know, everything was down a lot. So it was met by skepticism from everyone, really. Even my friends outside of banking as well was sort of just like, why would you ever do this to yourself? So everyone was skeptical. And Mando and I obviously left at the same time. We were both at Barclays. And I think he had the same thing. You know, people were saying the same things.
Did you ever get skeptical?
There were times, yeah. So this might lead on to the next stuff that we talk about actually. But so 2022, everything crashed. Sort of kept going. That's when I did RektGuy, and the art stuff was taking off for me. So despite crypto crashing, I suddenly found this new thing that was kind of going quite well, and that was good. And then kind of got to 2023 when like stuff had rebounded in like overall markets. So like equities were back up, everything was doing really well, but crypto was just not moving, right? You probably remember this. You know, NFTs were dead. Crypto just did not go higher. It was just stuck in this area, and I wasn't really doing anything. I wasn't really working on anything. It was the summer. You know, the NFT stuff, the art stuff was still there, but it wasn't really, I could see it wasn't something that was going to make me a living, if that makes sense. And that summer of 2023, I was basically just doing nothing. Like I was like playing golf. I went to watch the cricket by myself. I literally just sat there at the Oval Stadium for like 3 days in a row, just watching cricket by myself because all my mates were at work or whatever. And it was great. I loved it. It was a lot of fun. But it got to a point where I was like, man, what am I doing here? Like, I'm doing nothing. And this stuff, I need to have some sort of plan for if this stuff doesn't take off, and it may not take off. So I sat down, I was like, well, what do I have here that's going for me? Well, this RektGuy stuff and the art stuff, there's something there, I don't think it's going to work to just keep making NFTs, because that clearly was something that was in decline then. Like it was very clear to me that it was, but there's something there, and I should have some plan B in case all this crypto I own never goes higher again or goes low. I should have a plan B. And that's when the idea of Rekt Drinks came about, and the idea of doing something with Rekt came about. But it was that moment in time where I was starting to lose hope, and as a result of that, decided to pivot into something a little bit different. Same but different kind of thing.
Yeah, let's go back to RektGuy for a second.
Yeah.
So I think you've said this specifically, so I hope this isn't like a controversial take or insulting to what it has now become. Yeah. But it was a doodle.
Yeah, literally was.
Yeah. And it was this little guy on the packaging right now. He's everywhere. You doodled and then decided, I'm going to create a collection on this doodle. Tell me about that. Was it just one of one artwork? Did you ever see it as like a collection? And especially the juxtaposition between watching Bored Apes being such a big holder in that community, watching it go to 500,000 for a single access point, a single one JPEG in a 10,000 piece collection, and then seeing it sort of go on the decline quite heavily, and there you are thinking, I'm going to launch one of these things.
Yeah, it's a good question. So on the art side of things, I'm not an artist, right? But I used to make a lot of digital art when I was younger. This is like way before NFTs or crypto and that kind of stuff. And I just stopped doing it when I was 18 because it was like not a very cool thing to do. You know what I mean? Like I'd do it when I was at home and stuff. And there was an online community called DeviantArt. So I like post my artwork on there. And then when I went to uni, I was like, oh, I don't want to tell anyone I do this. This is pretty kind of embarrassing. So I just completely stopped. And then I remember at the time it was really expensive to get like a digital graphics tablet. Yeah. They were like $3 or $4 grand. So I used to draw with my mouse, and I could never really like draw the things that I wanted to draw as well as I could with my hand. So when the NFT stuff happened in 2021, I was like, I can just, buy an iPad now and draw stuff digitally. Like it's, pretty easy to do. And I was like, let me just make some stuff because I'll just do it for fun. Like this is what I used to do 15 years ago. I haven't even thought about creating art, but I'll just make some stuff. I just minted something randomly, like a one-of-one piece. And then someone bought it, not for very much, but I was like, that's really cool. Like someone actually thought I like this art. I'm going to now spend money on it and buy it. Then I made another one. Someone bought that one for like a little bit more. Made another one. Someone bought that for like even more. And then the prices people were paying for it started to increase, where by the 5th or 6th piece, like the auctions for it, there were multiple people bidding in the auctions, and they started selling for a few $1,000s. And so in these pieces, there was this recurring character, which was this like skeleton character with the hoodie. And the idea of it was that it was meant to sort of be me still working in a bank, where it's like you're highly functional and active, but you're a bit dead inside. You sort of lost your soul to the corporate world. That was my thought on it. And this character, or multiples of these characters, were in each piece. So I thought, at this time, all the NFT PFP collections were stuff like Bored Apes, Doodles, Pudgy Penguins, where they're sort of pastel colored, cute animals, or this very like happy kind of vibe, and which is fine, but that's not really the aesthetic that I resonate with. And I was like, it'd be cool instead of having like this white background, it was like a black background with neon colors and very in your face kind of stuff. I just thought that would be a cool idea for a PFP collection, and I thought it'd be cool just to make this character into it. So I didn't want to really make any money from it. I didn't want any expectations from it. So when we created it, the whole thing was free. Like I didn't charge anything for it. It's given out away as a free mint. And for me, the idea was like, I just wanted to make it into a collection because I thought it was a cool thing to do. I sort of just spent my evenings and weekends doing it and working on it, and just for fun, really. It was like a side quest for me. But when I generated the first batch of images, I was like, this actually looks really cool. Yeah. Like it came out way better than I thought it would be. Something when you think something in your head, it's like, that might be quite cool. And then when you do it, put it on canvas, you never really get, for me, it's like 50-50 whether something is good or not. And sometimes I'll just scrap things because I'll be like, oh, that just looks terrible. Or what was I thinking? Or I couldn't quite get what was in my head onto canvas. But sometimes it comes through and you're like, wow, that's like way better than I thought it would be. And that's what it was for RektGuy. But it was like, by this time, my individual artworks and editions had really taken off. So it took me a few months to make. And by the time I'd finished making it, there was so much hype around it because like everything else had taken off. And, you know, I said it was going to be free mint. Obviously people love free money, so they knew they'd make money off it.
Yes.
And yeah, we launched it in, I think, April or May 2022 is right when everything also crashed and nuked as well. So this idea of being Rekt or RektGuy was something lots of people could resonate with. But yeah, it was just kind of, it wasn't really super well planned. It was just something that I was doing because it felt like something I wanted to do, and kind of just took off really.
Organic is
Yeah.
literally, I think it's going to be really reassuring for a lot of people actually, because like, I don't know about you, but I didn't know what I was going to do with my life.
Yeah.
Like, still to this day, like, I don't know where it's going to go, and I'm quite happy with what I'm doing now. But that, I was in my 30s before I started creating content full time. And I think realistically, especially in the UK, you're supposed to have it figured out by 18, you know, like actually 16, because you're choosing.
You study the right thing at university.
Yeah, exactly.
Study the right A levels.
And I think that's the same in the US. It's got a little bit more freedom to it, I think, in the college environment, because you get to sort of dabble in different areas. The UK, we don't have that. It's like you choose a degree in university, economics, law, architecture, whatever, but it's a singular thing. And you're going to go into university for 4 to 7 to 8 years doing that thing. And if you come out of it and you decide, actually, this isn't what I want to do, that's a lot of money and a lot of time spent not getting there. And I think this idea of you sort of choosing that path, making a decision to go to the financial side, which was a big decision, it was a popular decision in the time, then just organically stumbling across what we're now going to talk about, I think a lot of people will love that and resonate with that, because it isn't like, you could, I don't want to speak for you, but my assumption is you could never have imagined your life being where it is right now.
Yeah. No, yeah. Zero chance. Even, if you told me this 4 years ago or 5 years ago, I'd just be like, no, like, it's still, I do have to pinch myself sometimes, because it is just things that I never thought I would be doing.
Yeah.
That I never really even necessarily aspired to do. But as time has gone on, I've been, oh, that's really interesting. Let me try to do that. So, it's quite a weird journey.
Are you happy?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love being my own boss. I have really enjoyed creating something where we've made a lot of money for other people. Like, everyone in our community who supported us got this thing for free, have made, thousands of dollars on the NFT, on the Rekt coin, etc. So I think for me, it sounds, you probably don't hear it from a lot of people, or maybe you don't believe it when people say it, but I do find it quite fulfilling when I get messages when someone's like, oh, hey, thanks for all this. Like, I bought my fiance an engagement ring with the Rekt guys that I minted. Or someone sent this message, almost made me cry. It was like, I've never taken my family on a holiday before, and I just, I minted this like rare RektGuy, which I sold for like $7,000, something like that. And we're going to, it was someone, I can't remember where he lived in, which state he lived in, but I'm taking them all to like Disneyland, like, because of you. And I was just like, wow, that's like, that when I started getting those messages, I was like, that, you grow up your whole life thinking, oh, I really want to make money, and like, I want to do this, I want to do that. Yeah. And then like, as I've gotten older, become way less materialistic. Yeah. Care way less about making more money. Like, for me, it's not, some people get really addicted to it. It's like, as a computer game, I want to become a millionaire, 100 million, $1 billion. Like, that's not me. And then it's like, okay, well, what if I'm not trying to keep making more money? What am I really trying to do? Yeah. And it's hard to find things that I think genuinely reward you. But those messages made me feel like, I actually feel like really good that I've done something that's indirectly benefited or directly benefited someone else. Yeah. And if I can do more of that and have that impact on like a wider scale, I think I'm I would feel really rewarded by it. And they all go hand in hand, because if you do that and people feel really thankful to you, right? And they become really loyal to you. And if this is your brand, people become loyal to that brand. Like, Rekt is me, and that makes the whole thing successful. So it's this kind of weird thing where you can actually do really well without having to stab people in the back or trample on people, which is what some shrewd businessmen think you have to do. As you don't,
a lot
actually.
of them.
Yeah.
Look, I guess from where we are right now, people are going to be very confused by that on the screen.
Yeah.
We've talked about creating an art collection, selling these apes that were part of a club and buying them in the first place. Connect the dots for me. How do you go from launching an initial collection and the size of that collection, which then represents the community that you've now built, and getting to a drink, a brand, a token?
Yep.
Connect those dots for me.
Yeah, so we had this big NFT boom, right, in 2021, and then everything sort of like died. And it was clear to me that we couldn't just have a RektGuy NFT and hope that was going to be the thing that would make us do really well. And people still don't seem to get that to this day. Like I realized this about 3 years ago, and which is why we are where we are now. And I still see people talk about NFTs in this way where it's like, I understand from the art standpoint, but I think you have to be realistic and see where the attention, the capital, and the trend is going. So something that I think Pudgy Penguins did really well is when they made those plushie toys and got them into Walmart, etc. Then they went up a lot, and people realized that, this is an amazing thing that I want to be a part of. And I realized what they did and what Luca did was they used the IP and brand they built through crypto, through NFTs, which allows you to do it in a very accelerated fashion. Like you go from 0 to 100 in terms of like community, people who want to support you, your brand, IP, etc. And then they use that to apply it to a traditional business model. So, hey, we already have this existing brand and community now. Now let's go and make these toys. We have a community who want to own them, want to buy them, want to support it and push it. So let's say you make a drink and you want to make a really cool drink, right? And you don't have nothing, you're just some random person, you have no one behind you. You make the drink, now you need to find people to sell it to, or people to get behind it, people to get behind the brand. You don't have that. And you have to then start growing that and spend money on marketing, spend a lot of time and effort on growing that. And people often fail at that, or will spend tons of money, or it takes years to do, right? Some of the best brands in the world have been building their brands for decades. But with crypto, you could just do it in like a few months. And that's what I realized with Rekt. We just went from launching this thing in May 2022 to by the end of the year, having all this mind share and all these people behind it, and these things worth thousands of dollars. Like that's like a real brand and community. And where I think 99% of crypto projects, NFT projects messed up was they used that IP they'd built to just sell more NFTs. Yeah. They ended up diluting their holders. NFT holders were like, well, what, I like this for what it is, but if you just keep selling me more NFTs, it's kind of, they become worthless over time. And that's what Luca didn't do. Luca was smart. He was like, okay, we're not just going to sell more NFTs, right? And that's what I realized, like just making a secondary RektGuy collection or a third thing or doing this or that, sure, it was a way for the company to raise a lot of money, but it wasn't something that was going to be successful. And I liked his idea of pivoting to a real world business. And so we decided, from his inspiration, basically decided to do the same thing. It was like, okay, let's use this Rekt IP that we have and this community behind us to do a product, to do something. And we decided on drinks because the idea was like, how do we get the Rekt brand in as many places as possible? Yeah. And number one, like the Rekt guys drinking a drink, so like, it kind of made sense. But number two, with drinks, they're cheap to manufacture. You can mass produce them. You can manufacture thousands of drinks. And in my head, it was like, okay, even if we only make 10,000 drinks, that's 10,000 times someone's going to pick up like a Rekt can with a big Rekt logo on it and drink it and see the brand and see the logo. And there are so many events within crypto, outside of crypto. Yes. People need to have drinks there, right? People need to say hydrated, say refreshed. So it was a really easy way to get them into places. And that was the idea, basically. So we just went down the path of, okay, how the hell do we now make drinks? None of us had any experience in CPG or manufacturing or anything like that. And we were lucky to meet someone early on who's now with us full time, who started as an advisor and had made his own drinks company in the UK. Dirty Drinks, have you ever heard of it? They're canned alcoholic drinks.
Right.
And he's now joined Rekt full time, basically. But we worked with him to figure out how to make drinks, basically.
Was the token before or after the drink?
So the original idea was the drink, and we hadn't thought about doing a token. We weren't going to do a token. And as we started making it and we manufactured the first batch, and I sort of started calling people up to sell it to people, and I kind of realized that it was going to be hard to sell a lot of this.
Yeah.
And you go to crypto events, but hey, do you guys want any Rekt drinks for your event? And people will kind of be like, no, well, the venue won't allow it, or we can't really pay for it and stuff like that. And so then I realized, okay, well, it's working great if we send people drinks for free as a marketing exercise, but obviously there's no revenue coming in, so this is not going to work as a business. And this is right around the time meme coins started really taking off, right, and doing really well. And everyone's like, oh, we should have a Rekt meme coin. It would be perfect. And I never really wanted to do a token. I didn't want something to have an additional liability on. Yeah. And I just felt like we wouldn't really have a plan for it if we did. But something I saw was, do you remember the Solana phone?
Yes.
So it was out for like 2 years. No one touched it, right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly all these airdrops you got from holding the phone, like bonk, were worth a decent amount of money. I think like you could claim $500 worth of bonk for every Solana phone. So then the whole phone just sold out in like 20 hours or something like that, because people could get money from it. And it sold out in the US, and then it was still available in Europe, and people in the US were buying them in Europe and just, getting them, paying expensive shipping and stuff. And that's when I realized, I was like, okay, it's kind of an interesting use case where in crypto, we're very used to getting rewarded with a token airdrop for doing on-chain activity. That's like, hey, come into my L2, bridge capital, do a bunch of trades, and in return, we'll give you a token airdrop. And I thought, okay, it could be interesting to apply that same model, but to an off-chain activity in a traditional business. So how that happened with the Solana phone, whether it was intended or not by them, I was like, okay, what if we did it with drinks, right? What if there was a Rekt coin airdrop per drink and people actually made money on it? Then people are just going to buy the drinks just to make the money. Like, who wouldn't do that? And then the worst case scenario, you actually get a drink. So that's when we had that idea, after we manufactured the first batch of drinks. And then we were like, okay, let's kind of like, that's when I started feeling good about the idea. I was like, okay, this could work quite well now. So we basically took that risk, took that gamble then, and manufactured like 220,000 drinks and structured it. So the idea was that you should make a decent amount of money from buying these drinks. And whoever bought that first one, it was a Trojan horse in terms of getting that drink out there in front of a ton of people. And it was a Trojan horse to get people into the Rekt ecosystem. And if you make people money on it, as we discussed earlier, people want to do more of it. They want to buy more. They want to be more involved. Or if they see their mates making money on this Rekt drinks thing, they want to get involved as well. So that was the idea. And yeah, the first one that we did, I think people, if they've held onto this coin until now, they've made something like 20 times their money, which is a lot. People have made a lot
for buying a drink.
For buying a drink that you actually can drink as well. Yeah. It's a real product compared to other intangible crypto stuff that people I think got a bit tired of. People are like, oh, I actually get a physical thing delivered to my house. And weirdly, there was a very novel feeling to that for people who are in this digital world, if that makes sense.
When did the flywheel come in then? I almost hate that word at this point in time in crypto, because so many times it's just used incorrectly, or it just doesn't actually have any tangible relation to what it actually should mean in a general business sense. I think RektGuy might be one of like 5 products actually in crypto that use that word correctly. Tell me about the evolution of, okay, I can see how launching a token or a coin that people get rewarded in when they buy the drink is going to help sell the drink. And then there's going to be a community that continuously do that, buy the drink, get the coin, buy the drink again because they got the coin. And as long as that is successful, potentially a community should just continue to grow through that. Tell me about when that became like a solid sort of concept to you
Yeah.
that was a little bit more than just, hey, there's a token that's going to sell a drink?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think people didn't really understand what Rekt coin was. It was like, is it a meme coin? Is it an NFT coin? How did the drinks fit in? It was all a bit confusing, and I found it hard to convey the message for what it actually was. And we sold out that first drop, and it was all great, right? And then Rekt went up a lot, then everything crashed, and then I think people were sort of like, well, it was a one-hit wonder. Can they do that again? Why would I ever buy this Rekt coin thing? It doesn't really make much sense. So that's when we thought of the idea of pitching it as a brand coin, basically, because it was like, it's kind of like a meme coin where the value of it is intangible. It moves up or down based on human sentiment. You know, there's no like, going back to the very first thing I spoke about, there's no model-driven way to value it, like Bitcoin. But it's not just a meme. There's something behind it. There's the drinks behind it. There's people behind it who really identify with Rekt as a brand or as a culture. So I decided to make up the term brand coin, basically, because then if someone asks you what is Rekt, you'd be like, it's a brand coin. What is that? Oh, it's a coin for this brand, Rekt. Right. Then they're kind of like, even though you need to ask more questions, it kind of makes sense, right? Yeah. Whereas if I said, oh, it's a meme coin, but we have this drinks thing, and then we have this NFT thing, then it's kind of all a bit confusing. Whereas like if you say it's a brand coin, people are like, oh, I get it. It's the coin for that brand. And now that term makes a lot more sense because we've, you know, something we just made up in the summer, but everyone uses it now, and it's quite cool to see it being used out there. But the idea is like, you know, everyone has this affinity to an up and coming brand or a challenge brand. Everyone has that, right? Or even a big brand, whatever it is, right? It's the reason why, exactly. It's the reason why you might pay 3 times the money for a can of Red Bull versus a generic energy drink, or why people will pay more for a Nike hoodie versus, you know, an unbranded equivalent, right? And the thing about early brands is if you find a really cool brand, and let's say you love it, like if, you know, whatever it is, and how you want to support it, right? How do you support it? You end up buying their products, you tell your mates about it, you post about it, you share the link with your friends and family. Now, if that brand crushes it and does really well in the next 3 or 5 years, what do you have to show for it? Like pretty much nothing, right? You haven't been rewarded at all. And not only that, they start paying random influencers, people who probably don't even care about the actual product, to talk about it. So you kind of like, all you can really say is, oh, I was one of the early ones who found this cool band, or you know, found this cool drink, or found this cool like hoodie company 5 years ago. Look at this. This is what I have. Maybe this is worth a bit of money now, but you haven't really been rewarded for it. And I think what this does is like, okay, if you're early in buying Rekt Drinks and you get this Rekt coin and you hold on to it, if we start doing really well, you will make a lot of money. And lo and behold, people who bought the first one have made, you know, they're up 20 times their money. They're people who spent thousands of dollars on just buying drinks, and they've now made hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think there's a couple of people out there who've made like millions of dollars from it, right? Wow. And they've been rewarded for being an early supporter, and people continue to be rewarded for it. And so I think what this brand coin thing does is it solves that problem of loyalty. Yes. And yeah, sure, like current companies have loyalty points, right? But like loyalty points are governed completely by the companies themselves. They have unlimited supply. You can only redeem them for things in kind. So it's like, okay, like buy 5 coffees, get 1 coffee free. With Rekt coin, you can actually sell it for real money, right? You can sell it for real money. There's millions of dollars of volume that go through every day. You can trade it. And we don't own all of it. The community owns all of it. So the community actually has a stake in what we're doing, a stake in the brand. And so it's much, much more powerful as a concept, I think. And it's sort of what NFTs were trying to do, but couldn't quite. There was just that missing piece to get right, whether it was how it was messaged or marketed, or whether it was the fact that NFTs are too illiquid and coins are more liquid and, you know, easy to understand. And it feels like we've solved something because people have, you know, this whole Rekt stuff started quite well, but we had this second wind, if you like, over the last few months where we've now sold over 1 million drinks and we've got a lot of momentum behind it, because I think it's something that I can explain to someone who's not in crypto. You know, people understand that idea of being early into a brand. People understand loyalty points. But now I'm saying, okay, instead of your loyalty points, you can actually buy and sell it and it will go up if you do really well. That's not that a difficult concept to understand, right? Yeah. And that's what I think we're onto something.
I know you're onto something, or at least I feel like I know you're onto something. I just referenced, the Apple Watch and the iPad there. I picked up the first iPhone when everyone was super cool with their Blackberries,
Yeah.
I still had to pay full price for that thing.
Yeah.
And that thing. And I haven't received anything in
Yeah.
return other than a great product. And a seamless product as well. I do like how I'm a lazy guy, so it's seamless. The watch speaks to the iPad.
Yeah.
When I'm on a show like this, I can see messages come up. I can connect it to my phone, which is also still an iPhone. But realistically, it kind of sucks that the only thing I can do is say I owned a 3GS, and maybe it's virtually out there somewhere because it was a piece of technology. There's probably a fingerprint, or this is when Jack first logged into iTunes that connected to the phone. Probably some blueprints I could potentially show and say, hey, I did that. No one would care though. No one really would care. I think people who own the original iPhone now, which I do not, you can sell that for quite a bit of money because of what it did to an industry.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why the brand coin and Rekt Drinks is such an opportunity, because it's a more liquid representation of that first iPhone. Yes, they sell. There is a scarcity element to that, which the coin does have, which, as you said, point systems do not have. But also, there is a flex in ownership, and there is a value return on how early you came into that ownership. Like, if you bought that iPhone 10 years, 15 years ago, whenever it first came out, and you still held it, you maybe spent $200-$300 on that iPhone. It's now worth tens of thousands, especially if it's in good condition. Same thing sort of applies to these coins. Like, if you got them very, very early on and you still hold them 15 years later, and Rekt Drinks and the bigger brand is what Apple is to phones today, then there's going to be a lot of upside to that. But it's a lot easier to hold, to show, to flex, but also not to lose or damage. Like, I don't know how many people actually own that phone right now in the world, and I'm not sure how many of them even still function, hence some of the price fluctuation. When we do talk about brand coins, and we do talk about like the future of all of this, I think for people who are more financially literate, they're going to be asking a question around stocks and shares. Like, at what point does this brand coin not essentially reflect a stock or a share? And I guess a bigger question, as this company does get more successful, and maybe you do go public with it, or something along those lines, how do those things not end up competing against each other? I think that's a question I have. I think that's a question people will have who invest more traditionally in like seed A rounds and like early. Tell me about like how you've wrapped your mind around that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I have had a lot of conversations with people, liquid crypto funds, in terms of trying to get them involved into the coin. And almost every single person always asks, how do I buy the equity? How do I get involved in the equity? That's what all these traditional finance guys want to own. And people have seen in the drinks industry brands go from zero to getting sold for like $1 or $2 billion. You've had Poppy, Olipop, Alani Nutrition, Ghost Energy, all the stuff in the functional space that just 7 to 9 year old companies, not old companies, right? That just suddenly go meteoric and get acquired. So everyone wants to own the equity for it. And here's my response to it, right? My response is, if you want to get exposure to the equity, you can, but that's going to be at some point when we do a future capital raise, or if we ever go public, or whatever it is, right? That's going to be much further down the line. It's going to be when we've been successful already and our success continues to grow, and then eventually we'll do it. And maybe we'll do a capital raise, but it's going to be at a larger valuation than where we are at right now. So there's no way for you to get exposure to it until you're at a future point in time. So how do I get exposure to it right now? You buy the coin, because the coin is there, it exists, and it moves up or down. And guess what? In 5 years' time, if we kill it and the equity is worth a lot, is the coin going to be lower or higher? It's going to be a lot higher, right? It's going to be a lot higher. Is the coin going to be the best buy when the equity exists and all that stuff is there, like, you know, that's more of a difficult question to answer. And when those two things do exist side by side, that's when we're going to have to figure out how they don't cannibalize each other and how they're two different things. And, you know, right now the regulation of this stuff is quite difficult, but in a future point in time, it would be cool to say like, okay, you can burn Rekt for equity, or, you know, everyone who owns Rekt gets an airdrop of the equity at IPO. There's all these interesting things you can do, right? And we actually we gifted people equity in the company for people who had the NFTs. So we managed to figure a way around that. If we do a closed capital raise in the future, I'm more likely to reach out to people who own Rektcoin Whales than I am to other people who don't, right? So there are all these different factors where I think the correlation between them right now is extremely strong. And also Rektcoin is the only way to get exposure to upside in the sentiment, which is correlated to upside in the operational performance. But in the future, I would love to find a smart way to make these things a bit more interlinked. And, you know, it's regulation permitting. We have to make sure that Rekt isn't Rekt, and it currently isn't a security, and we have to make sure that stays intact. And we have to find ways where we can do it in a way where we're within the law, if that makes sense. But I think the way that crypto is going in terms of regulation in the US, there may be a window of opportunity to do that.
I think so, yeah. For those unfamiliar with what is going on in the US right now and in the UK, to a certain point as well, I think I heard like ETF, Bitcoin ETF is now coming to the UK, or is in the UK. This is literally a 180-degree turn from the past 5-6 years in crypto. You know, you have a governing body, the SEC in the US, who essentially were telling you if you were involved in crypto, there's going to be a big risk there, and they were eventually going to come after you. You now have Donald Trump at the head and a completely different set of rules and regulations by the day. Like the regular, you know, there's a crypto act, there's all of these like specific historical moments happening right now in this space, like to this day, that are creating a path for crypto to be a legitimate system, and therefore a token that eventually does become an equity in a way, or some version of that. I think if you had given me that response a couple of years ago, I would have pressed you on way more. You know, I would have like, that just doesn't. Now I think it's a fantastic answer, and I love that concept. And I guess there's so many different ways we can go with this conversation from here. One of the big things I would like to do is speak to the potential founders, you know, the people who have seen what you've done, seen the success you currently have, and are maybe thinking to go down that route right now in that startup era where it's just way too early to think about like public launches, equity, that sort of area. For people who maybe are looking to get into the startup world right now and are really interested by the answers you've given and the path that you've taken with this brand coin, what would you tell them about taking this path? Both the benefits, which I think we've already talked about a little bit, but also the challenges, especially being so publicly visible at such an early age of a company, where it's going to have way more hardships than it does when it is stable enough to go through an IPO and to have equity.
Yeah, so something I would say is there have been lots of consume to earn type projects out there, like walk to earn, vape to earn, like all these random stuff, right? And when you start off whatever you're doing with a coin, naturally the only people you attract are people who want to make a quick buck out of it and leave and move on to the next thing. So when you do that, it's very hard to get off the ground, right? You might have this initial boost, but then people just leave, and then people are angry because it's down, and it's almost like you're starting on the back foot, if that makes sense. For us, what was important is we had this whole, I think the most important thing was that I never intended to do any of this, so you sort of have that natural organicness to it. But I think for us, we had this like community and brand that was built and existed for a few years before we even thought about launching a coin. We actually never even wanted to launch a coin to begin with. So when we did launch it, people are like, okay, I'm going to buy it and hold it because I've been around in this thing for 3 or 4 years and I believe in it. And I know these guys are good actors. I'm not just going to be myopic in my thinking. And so my advice as an extension of what I just said would be, if you just start off by doing a coin, most people think, and they wouldn't be wrong in thinking it, that you're just trying to make money, extract and walk away, right? And then it becomes very hard to have a community or people around you to support you. So even if your intentions are genuine, people are going to be skeptical of you.
Yes.
And what I think is a better path is, okay, figure out whatever it is that you want to do, but just don't launch the coin straight away.
Yes.
Like, show that you're a credible person, show that what you've built is credible, whether it's just a crypto app, like let people be able to use the app, realize it's a good product, whether it's a brand or a product, whatever it is, do a lot of it, have a community around it, and get people to buy into what the actual thing it is without the coin. And the longer you can do that for and have a real community and not just doing all these annoying farming exercises and that kind of stuff, like a real thing that people actually want to enjoy without needing to get paid for it, the longer you can do that for, the more of a loyal community you have behind you, and then the more powerful your token will be when you launch it. And that, I think, is the right way to do things. And that shouldn't be confused with, oh, hey, here's this product that I've built, and come and use it and you'll get points and then you'll get an airdrop, because you need people to want to use it without any of that stuff, right? It has to actually be something, as a standalone thing, it has to be good enough, I think.
Yes.
And that's my biggest piece of advice, because I think people will look at this and be like, oh, I should just launch a coin because then we'll make hundreds of millions of dollars for the company and we'll do really well. It doesn't really work like that, because you need to have a very compelling story for people to buy into that and believe into this vision. So it's not an easy thing to do. And I think, honestly, even if like Pepsi or Coca-Cola did this, it wouldn't do that well, because people like supporting a crypto native project.
Yeah.
We had this story of like, it's like us versus them kind of thing. And people want Pudgy Penguins to succeed because it shows that crypto native IP can work in the real world. People want Rekt to succeed because it shows that we can compete against the bigger drinks brands from starting from nothing. So there's this like underdog support feeling within the space, where if someone else from outside the space comes and does it, they either don't want to support it because you're already just like a big brand, or they think they're coming to extract from this industry, which is what happened with celebrities and NFTs and meme coins in the last 2 or 3 years, right? So I think you have to really be genuine about your intentions, and I think you have to start by creating something real and creating a real community around it who's there because of what you've actually created, and not just to farm points. And it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, I guess you mentioned it earlier, but the organic nature of where you've just entered this whole industry, both as an investor but also then as a builder, gives you a trust avenue with a community that you can't manufacture. You know, there's just no way to do that. And you mentioned Coca-Cola and Pepsi not being able to do this. It's not even theory. It's already played out. You know, there are multiple big brands, some of the biggest brands people can think about, Nike, Gucci, Adidas. You know, they have come into this space and haven't succeeded as well as you have with this product in terms of reception and community building. You know, not talking financially extraction or anything along those lines. Just to be completely fair to these brands, I don't know how they entered the space and what they were looking to do. Maybe they thought it was cool. Maybe they did just see it as another financial opportunity. I wasn't in that room. But for looking into a community who are going to continue to help a brand grow, I don't think you could ever draw a parallel to what you have here with Rekt Drinks, Rekt Brand, RektGuy, and the businesses or the projects that they started, whether it be NFTs, tokens, whatever, and their communities, even if they do exist today, which from my understanding of the space, they don't have a community anymore. And the projects and the value of those assets that they launched in this space don't hold a lot of value through community or financial. I really want to dive into Rekt Drinks now from the brand side, and talk a little bit about how all of this comes from you building really aggressively publicly, and how all the advice that you've just given somebody in terms of don't just launch a project, on the foundation of all of that requires them to show you every single step of the way that they are a genuine person, that they are building a genuine product. And they are going to have to do that in a public way that not many startups could cope with. You know, you're trying to set up a business, you're trying to compete in a market like the drinks market, energy drinks, soft drinks, and you also have to spend the majority of your day publicly talking about all of this. Find the time to give your theories about why you're going to be successful on social media, create content, be here with me for an hour and a half today. What advice do you have for people around publicly building that reputation over such a long period of time, whilst also trying to start a business in such a competitive market?
Yeah, it's a tricky one, because it comes with, when you do things in public, and especially if you have a token that goes up or down in price, right?
Yes.
People, everything's very transparent. Yes. So if things are not going well, people will get very angry at you, or everyone loves to be a keyboard warrior and all that kind of stuff. So I think you have to just be prepared for it and be quite thick-skinned about it. For me, at the beginning, I was like, it's kind of like, you get angry when people just say things that are not true, or would come at you for a bit. And then after a time, I just realized that I don't really care. I think you have to not care about it. And the most annoying thing is when you have periods when price goes down and people are like, oh, why don't you guys do this? Or you should have done this, you should have done that. It's sort of like when you're watching England play football and you're like, oh, why didn't Southgate start like Cole Palmer? Or you should have crossed it. It's like, well, at the end of the day, like, they're playing for England and I'm sitting here like I'm on my sofa saying this stuff. You don't really know better. And it's much more extreme example than what I'm saying. But the mistake I think people make is when they start to give in to some of these community requests, and that's when you lose track of your vision and your conviction and what you're trying to do. And I think you just have to be like very headstrong and like, this is my idea, this is what I'm going to do, and these are the things I'm going to do to achieve it. And it may not always work 100% of the time, but if I keep deviating from different things just because it didn't work, then your overall messaging is not one that feels very confident to people. You don't have any conviction behind what you're doing, not only to yourself, but again, for public perception. And then the whole thing can unravel. And I think that's where lots of people trip up. So it's more sort of like, you just have to be like, this is what I'm going to do. And when things go really well, people will be like, oh, that's great. Like, he's stuck by his guns. When things go really bad, people might come at you a bit for not changing things up. But I think you will get a lot of respect for like, okay, at least that guy, even if it's not working, or even if it didn't work out, at least he had an idea, conviction behind it, and he tried it and didn't just, do things to move around. And that's what I think you have to do. And when you have that within you, then complaints and everything like that just suddenly feel irrelevant. Because in my head, it's like, okay, I have this idea. I know it's not going to always feel like it's going to work at every moment in time, but we're going to stick through it and it will come good. And we've had moments, like in April this year when things are down a lot and people are saying, you got to change, this is not going to work, but we stuck through it. And now when it does work in the end, it's even more powerful because people who doubted you are like, oh yeah, I was wrong about that, or I didn't think it would work, and now it's working. And then you gain even more credibility, right? So I think you just have to be very, very thick-skinned, but you need to be, it's not only that you have to be thick-skinned, you actually need to not care about what they're saying. You see what I mean? It's not like, oh, that kind of hurt, but I'm going to be thick-skinned about it. It's actually like, I don't give a fuck. I'm just going to do what I'm doing. And that's my mentality for it, which really helps. So then it makes the whole building and public thing really easy, because for me, it's like, I'm just going to make sure that I'm myself. I'm not changing how I am for other people, or I'm not like tweeting things a bit more professionally now that's in public. I'll just say whatever I want to say. And I'm not going to change my ideas just because it's in the public now. And I'm not going to change it just because the crypto market's down. I'm going to keep doing it. And I think over time, people will respect you for it. And you have to do that. I think you have to do that. Without doing that, you're not, you start to open up weaknesses, and you start to also doubt yourself, which is where you don't want to be.
Yeah, from what you've just explained, it's for the 1%, right? It's for the 1% of founders. Probably 1% of those founders are going to succeed. But to even put your foot in this startup world that you've just sort of laid out for us, to not give a fuck, like not just to say it, but to mean it. Like, I know there's books on it.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Like, as a creator, I found it extremely difficult. I don't think human nature generally sets you up for that path. I think you maybe... have you always been that way?
No. So I actually haven't been that way. And there is a really good book called The Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I read a few years ago. And I think I've it's only really been in recent years where I've kind of become a bit more that way. I'm actually not that way outside of
course, yeah.
Like, as a normal person, I think I'm relatively self-conscious, or I'll sort of be a bit like, I don't want to make too much noise here because, I'm like, I guess that's also like very British as well. So
yeah, it's true.
But in this one, I'm not like that at all. I'm just like, okay, this is because I just know that I have to be headstrong about it. And I think if you look at the people who've done the best, they've just had the same idea from day one and they've done really well. And then occasionally there'll be significant things, paradigm shifts, and you'll have to prepare for those paradigm shifts. For us, maybe that was like realizing we had to move away from NFTs and into coins, and we did that at the right time. That was a good call in the end. So there are times where you do have to shift, but you have to. And this is the hard thing. You can't do it too much. You can't miss out on the stuff. You have to judge when it's right. But it's important to understand, like, not to change your idea just because the price is down, but to be honest with yourself and change your idea because you think there's a real meaningful paradigm shift, which means you need to change the idea. And it's very difficult to identify the difference between those two things, I think.
Yeah, and for you to choose it and to understand that you're choosing it. It's not like a bias that the community...
And I'm not saying I'm great at doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe I got lucky in doing it, and I took a risk, and I took risks in doing it, I took risks in not doing things. Like, I'm not saying I'm good at identifying them, but that's what it is, right? You take risks and you take shots, and sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't.
Well, let's talk about the working out, especially with the drinks, because you've already sold over 1 million units so far this year. So from everything we've had a conversation around right now, and people are like, who is this guy? Like, what is this new thing that he's building? And what is this drink in front of us right now? To put this into real world terms, this is a soft drink. So the market is not as large as, say, functional drinks, energy drinks, Red Bull. But Red Bull in their first year only just sold 1 million units. You've already done that this year. Tell me how big that is for you, and how you possibly got there. Like, where did that all come to?
Yeah, it's really big because when we had this idea and we were speaking to traditional drinks companies and distributors and retailers and stuff a year ago, they'd be like, okay, I don't get it. This is kind of dumb, right? And even when we sold the first 200K, it kind of raised some eyebrows, but people were like, oh, it was just a one-off thing. Maybe it's still a scam. Like, it's not going to work. Now, when we have all those sales under our belt and it's been going for just over a year, now everyone's like, okay, shit. Like, I was wrong, or they clearly have something, or they've somehow made it work, and people are very interested. So it gives us a lot of credibility. I think a lot of the theme of what we've spoken about today is credibility. And I think Ovi has great credibility in crypto. Now, when you go to the drinks world, everyone thinks crypto is a scam still, and no one knows who I am. So doing things like this and having those numbers under our belt gives us massive credibility, I think. And, we did it because it sort of just went viral, really, right? Yeah. Like, people have made a lot of money from buying drinks. So, giving out free money, what better way is there to than get things sold, right? But they're real numbers. They're real revenue numbers that we've earned. They're real drinks that we manufactured, and they're real drinks. Now there's over 1 million of these out there with a big Rekt logo on it that are going to get drunk, hopefully. If not, they get thrown away, but they're all going to be seen and viewed, right? And that's huge for our brand visibility and our brand growth outside of crypto. Like, there are people out there who've bought thousands of drinks. They don't drink them, and everyone's like, oh, that's really bad. All these whales are buying all these drinks. I'm actually, no, it's really good, because what happens is they end up giving them away to friends, family. They have their own events. People have supplied weddings and stuff with them. And then you get all these other normal people coming across these drinks who probably never even heard about crypto, right? Yeah. And they might try it, they might like it, they may not, who knows, but they've seen it and they're like, oh, that's kind of cool, that's interesting. And that is the best form of marketing, just seeing the drink somewhere, rather than, you know, us paying some influencer on Instagram to be like, oh, hey, this podcast is sponsored by this drink. I had this drink last night and I really liked it because it had very low in sugar and made me feel really good. And trust me, guys, really believe me when I say this is one of the best drinks I've ever had. Like, I fucking hate that shit. My wife listens to all these podcasts.
This is really good.
Yeah. And you just hear that stuff all the time. It'll be like, we'll have you having this conversation. They'll segue into like, oh, by the way, here are these like gummies that I had and they really make me feel relaxed. And it's just like, just shut up. Like, this is not real, it's not organic, you're getting paid to say this, and it really infuriates me. It really makes me feel angry inside. I'm just like, and so we've not done any of that stuff, and it's just like, okay, these drinks are just out there in the wild and people will see them. And you know, this is different because like this podcast is about this drink, but I'll give podcast drinks and I'll just say like, if you want drinks, have them. We're not going to pay you to sponsor them, but if you like it, have them, and you know, shout out if you want to, and that's it. Like and that I think is the best way of marketing. It's hard to do because it takes a long time to build up to it and grow, and it's not as like in your face as other stuff. But you know, that's where we have the crypto side of things and the coin and people making money on it. So that's how I think I just think it's a much better way to do it. Yeah,
and look, we have talked about that at length, right? Like, you'd be very hard pressed to have watched this full interview and not understand how you've got there to those million drink sales. Obviously, the follow-up question is, what's next?
Yep.
There's been some content around that from you, again, always publicly building, putting yourself out there, putting your ideas out there, and basically sticking to those ideas. Tell me about functional drinks. Tell me about the category and tell me why Rekt Drinks are going there.
Yeah, look, functional is massive. The compound annual growth rate of just simple carbonated beverages is about 6% a year.
Which is what these are, right?
Which is what these are, yeah. Just plain flavored sparkling water. For functional drinks, it's about 10% a year. And we've all seen it, right? Even here in the UK, like people want to get like their bright energy drink or the Olipop or what are the brands that we have here? Like
Newtonic,
yeah, exactly. Like nootropics, all these different things that help you focus or give you natural clean energy, and they are products that actually work. I was quite skeptical about it, but in us entering that space, I've obviously done a lot of like testing and sampling and stuff, and there are things that actually, supplements that you can take that do work and help you improve certain aspects of your life, and it's become really big. So I think with this flavored sparkling water, the problem was it was hard to market. It was hard to find a good product market fit for it, and it's a very saturated industry. And I just felt like this brand is really cool. The people who are buying this stuff are people who are like trading crypto or gaming or into streaming and this kind of stuff, and they all have energy drinks or they all have focus drinks and this kind of stuff. It just felt like a very natural product market fit for our community to enter that space. Not to mention the growth in that space is very high. Not to mention that's where all the interest is from retailers and supermarkets and distributors. Everyone wants to stock that stuff or get into that space. So although it wasn't originally our plan, again, it's an example of having to like understand where we have to make pivots. That's what we're going to move into. And so we've been working on a clean energy powder, a clean energy drink as well. Probably the powder comes out first, I think. And the idea is it's clean energy from natural sources. It's zero sugar, which is the number one thing people care about the most, I think. And a couple of other ingredients in there as well, which we've been playing around with, which help from a focus standpoint. And honestly, I don't want to say it just to say it, but it does. The stuff does work. I'm not someone that really drinks energy drinks. I've never really drank tea or coffee in my life, and I've never really taken supplements. In the last few months, I've sampled and tried a lot of this stuff because I've sort of had to, basically, and tried to and understand it. And I have a Whoop, so it tells me like my recovery and all that kind of stuff. And after like playing around with these different things, like my recovery is materially higher if I've had like L-theanine, for example, than not having had it, or even having caffeine early in the day helps how the stats. It boosts my recovery by 6% compared to if I don't have it. So I'm just like, wow, like all this stuff is actually, for me at least, it's working. We'll have to see if it works for other people, but clearly it does. That's why it's taking off so much, right? That's why everyone's so into it right now. And on top of that, yeah, if you can have it all from natural sources, and on top of that, if it's zero sugar, then you have just a really winning. And on top of that, you have cool branding. You have a winner right there. You have like a really good winning product, and that's what we're trying to create now in this next iteration of what we're doing.
It's the opportunity. I think it's really clear, and you've spoken about this. We've seen a number of brands be acquired or sold for billions of dollars within this space, and these are energy drink brands or functional drink brands that have not been around for a long time. We're talking sub 10 years, sometimes 7 years, to go from literal startup to $1 billion acquisition or multi-billion dollar acquisition. So the opportunity is very, very clear. But I do feel like we're living in a world where the expectations have never been higher, and neither has been the skepticism. Everyone wants the limitless pill in liquid form now. They want you to be zero sugar. They want to have not slept very well the night before, maybe got 5 hours of bad sleep. They probably haven't exercised in the past month. They probably haven't drank enough water in the day. And this elixir is going to bring them to the top performer on the planet for whatever they're trying to do. With all the skepticism that you've dealt with around crypto, around literally everything that has brought you to this moment, how are you feeling about entering a space that has a whole new realm of skepticism, and it's still connected to crypto, so you're going to have that battle?
Again, like, I was originally skeptical on crypto, and then I eventually ended up understanding it, and I've always been skeptical on this stuff. Like, I've never been involved with this stuff at all, and then I tried it, and I've genuinely found it has a good impact on me health wise. So I think a lot of skepticism comes from people who just write things off naturally. It's human nature to write things off naturally, to just think, because I'm not doing it, it means it doesn't work. And I think that skepticism will subside. A lot of this stuff, is backed by scientific claims, and even more so in the UK than the US. In the US, you can kind of claim anything, right? Like, you have all these gut health drinks like Olipop and Poppy.
Yes.
And in the UK, you're actually not allowed to claim that stuff is good for your gut health. So I think here the brands are called Hip and Soda and Living Things, I think, but they can't make the same claims that those drinks can in the US, because there's not enough clinical evidence or scientific evidence to say that has a strong enough impact on you, right? So the claims that you can make here are backed by scientific evidence, and they're a production of things that are natural to you, right? So I think the evidence is there, and I think you have to try it for yourself to believe it. And I've tried it for myself, and it has worked, and I believe it. But it's important to understand that these aren't, the stuff that you said, you're not going to you can't just binge drink for a week and have one of these things and suddenly it's going to change your life, right? You have to generally practice a healthy lifestyle, and this will support it. But what I do find, and this is the thing that's interesting, I think, from just a psychological standpoint, if I start consuming healthier things or this stuff, it makes me want to do other things as healthy too. Like, if I wake up and it's okay, I've had one of our clean energy powders to start the day, and I haven't consumed any sugar, compared to if I've gone out there and had a frappuccino or something like that. I now want to live the rest of the day quite healthy. Whereas if I've had the frappuccino, I'm like, I've already started, so I might as well go have a donut, and I might as well just not work out now. What's the point? Whereas when you get on a roll to this healthy streak, you keep going until, for me, it's usually you have one night out or something like that, and you have to reset. That's generally how I do it. But I think it just helps in your overall, it helps you, if you're healthy in one aspect of your life, it makes you want to be healthier in other aspects of your life. It's like if you go to the gym, after you've been to the gym, you're cool, I want to have a protein shake, and now I want to have something clean. You don't, very few people go to the gym and then immediately
hit macros.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a rare thing to do, right? So I think all of this is self-supporting, if that makes sense. And there's skepticism around it, but I think there's good counterpoints to skepticism, because you have scientific claims you can make, and as a lifestyle standpoint, you can't really contest the lifestyle standpoint. Like this, you are by definition improving your lifestyle compared to having the other stuff, I think. So
we've just talked about the skepticism within the space, but also the market that there's just a huge opportunity for. And you've already proven yourself in an even more saturated market. I obviously have been following up, checking in on where you are right now, the updates that you provide on social media. There's a huge one that caught my attention very recently, which is very related to how you are going to get this new product out there, which is FaZe. Tell me about who FaZe are and tell me about what that's going to do for Rekt. And what is it? What is the drink? Is it Rekt Energy?
Yeah, so FaZe Esports is basically the biggest esports team in the world. They have an audience of about 300 million people. They're owned by a company called GameSquare, and GameSquare has an ETH treasury strategy that they've been doing. So, you know, we got connected to them and they've basically acquired some Rekt coin to be on their balance sheet. And as part of the partnership, we're actually going to be a shirt sponsor for the FaZe Esports jerseys that they'll go to the tournaments and play with. But we'll also be able to do a FaZe collaboration product with them as well. And when they did the last one 2 years ago, it was the highest selling product in the energy category across all 7-Eleven stores in the US. So we're going to be able to do that with Rekt. It's either going to be an energy drink or an energy powder. I'm not sure, but you see all the pieces fit into the puzzle now, right? Like we have a product which is energy/focus, directly applicable to people who are gaming, esports, that kind of stuff. We have the distribution now. We have a big community. FaZe is like 50 times, like 100 times the size of our community, right?
Yes.
So you have like very clear distribution there, very clear marketing there for it as well. And everything all just fits into place. And also people in the drinks world are like, oh, I remember that from 2 years ago. That product absolutely killed it. We want to get involved in this. We want a piece of this. We want to be a part of this. So it's all there. That's sort of like I think people haven't really paid that much attention to it because it's not live yet. But when I explain it, everyone's like, oh, wow, that's going to be really big. Yeah. And that I think is going to be the thing that's really going to drive us in the coming weeks and months. When that gets going, that product is going to do really well. And we're in the process of manufacturing that stuff now. It's going to do really well. And it's not only going to do really well within the crypto world, it's going to do well in the traditional world. Right. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to be in retailer supermarkets. It's going to be, within all of FaZe's distribution units. So that I think is going to be the moment people's minds will start switching on and be like, oh wow, like this ceiling is much bigger than I really thought it was.
You actually answered my second question there for me, which was the distribution. You know, where do you see this thing? Because you've just explained who FaZe Esports are, and anybody who's picked up a controller knows that name. Yeah, that's going to be huge. But the distribution for your current drinks hasn't, to my knowledge, hit like a broad supermarket. You can find it in certain stores, I believe. Is that right? Or
so we didn't go down the traditional distribution path because we've just been selling them out from our website. Everything we manufacture gets sold from our website, and when we sell it direct to consumer, we capture all the gross profit margin, right? Yeah. When you go through a distributor, you give up basically all of your gross profit margin. Yeah. However, if you want to scale and grow it, and if you want to go from selling 1 million cans to 10 million cans, 100 million cans, we have to be in stores and supermarkets. So even though we're not there yet, next month we will be across a few hundred stores in the US. Wow. And we'll have some more updates coming up on that, but we're very close to getting that launched. And if that does really well, then we're working with some pretty big distributors as well, who are working with, I think, some of the biggest names in the industry. So again, like I've mentioned this information, it's in my keynote presentation, which you've probably seen it and watched, right? I think people are just not switched on to it, maybe they need to see it. They need to see it to believe it. That's probably a lot of what it is, but we'll have that stuff coming too for these drinks themselves.
Yeah, that's going to be a moment. And I'm super excited to see what is to come. It's final two-parter. Long term, what does this mean for the brand? Because you just talked about the fact that you can't capture all of the profit, but also in terms of marketing expense, not too bad. Like if you're in every supermarket across these like countries and you're with, you're on streams that are shown to 300 plus million followers on an annual basis, obviously people don't have to connect the dots too hard to see how much growth is going to come to this through this brand. How would you explain, or what is your hope for the long term then, if all of these things do come to fruition? And then the two-parter to this is, what does that mean for the brand coin holders and the community as they are today?
Yeah, look, I just think we have a massive opportunity to be one of the biggest drinks companies out there, right? Like we've seen, as you mentioned, we've seen other new companies do it in the space of 7 to 8 years, and they've done it through the power of social media. And I think this next iteration of brands is going to be through Web3 and through crypto. And I feel like we're a first mover in it. There's not really anyone else doing what we're doing, and we're getting some success from it. So I think I would be doing myself a disservice if I had a target anything below becoming one of the biggest brands out there. And that's absolutely the goal. And that should mean the brand coin will be a lot higher, right? We'll have way more people involved, much bigger brand visibility, much greater intangible value of our brand, and it should be a lot higher. And people who are now supporting it will get rewarded for it, and that's the idea.
Awesome stuff. Well, Ovi, OSF, thank you so much for your time today. This has been one of my favorite podcasts that I've ever done, like genuinely, and I just can't thank you enough for spending this time with me and doing it IRL, which is my first. This is my first IRL. Any updates, milestones, anywhere, like people who've enjoyed the content today, anywhere they can go to find out more about this product, this brand?
Yeah, at Rekt Drinks is our social handle across all social platforms. Rekt.com is the website. And you can follow me on Twitter, OSF_Rekt. Probably the best way to keep up.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Cheers. Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.